that will happen first, and then we'll have a separate public comment for anything else. So just so you're clear about that. Okay, we have the approval, and there's been some amendments to it of the agenda. Under number 12, we have a field trip request that from the boys swimming and diving that was added. Under new business for action number 3, there'll be a presentation about BSH from Scott Whittemore before we do that approval for that PR. We also added a presentation for the Brainerd Learning Center construction documents and a presentation for the Wesby schematic design under number 4. I think that's everything. They need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
We have a first from Director Boyles, second from Director Blackledge. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So we're ready, and there she is, the presentation for Truth in Taxation.
Just 1 second. I'm gonna look to my left at technology because I got it ready for you. Tried that one. All right, so we're gonna use it this way. All right, so tonight is the public hearing for taxes payable 2022. The Minnesota state law requires that we have this presentation from November 25th to December 28th. It's at this regular scheduled board meeting. We'll allow for public comment and then adopt the final levy after this. And there needs to be a presentation of the current year budget as well as the proposed property tax levy. So we're going to go through the information on school funding as well as the district's budget, and then the proposed tax levy, and then we'll allow for public comment after that. So the Minnesota legislature must set funding for Minnesota public schools. The legislature shall make these provisions by taxation or otherwise, so they always meet in the spring, as you guys know, and they set forth all the limits that we have potentially to set. Funding is highly regulated, so currently our gen ed formula is $6,728 per pupil. Tax policy is set for local schools as well, and then they set the maximum authority that we have to levy on to voters. We can have the opportunity as well to submit for referendums. As you know, that's how Blueprint 181 came about. That was a capital referendum, but you can also do an operating referendum as well. So the challenge is the state sets the basic general ed formula and it has not kept up with inflation. So if it was, the formula would need to be increased by 8.7% or that $598. Last year that was 7.7, so you can see that gap just keeps growing. Even though we're getting funding increases, it's still not keeping up with inflation. So this year, we got a 2.45% increase and then a 2% increase in the following year. And then this is just a graph that depicts the gen ed formula versus inflation. You can see that they have not kept up on that. So underfunding and sped, there should be a little graph on here. I apologize. So the state has been was underfunded $673 million in fiscal year 20. It's projected to be $806 million in fiscal year 25. When there's underfunding in special ed, the district's options are to cut regular program budgets or do an operating referendum, which states have done both of those, or schools, excuse me. The state average is $850 operating referendum, and I did ask Ellers what that would mean for Brainerd Public Schools if we had that, because currently we don't have any. It would be about $5.4 million on our current tax levy, and that would be about $16 a month on a $150,000 property value. Just so you can kind of, when we were selling the capital referendum, we talked about that $7 per month. The operating is a little bit higher value because it goes across all properties, it's not broken out by classification. So just wanted to share that little piece of information. The change in the tax levy does not determine the change in the budget. Again, there should have been a little picture for you guys. So for example, a tax increase for debt issued does not mean that that helps our general fund. So when we're talking about a 0.45%, that doesn't mean that the general fund will be able to spend $110,000 more. It's going towards all sorts of different buckets. And some of those buckets are restricted. So for example, operating capital, we can only purchase equipment, thank you. So in your document, it should be showing up if you guys want to look at that, refer to that. Safe schools, we can only spend it on, cameras, our school resource officers. So some of those buckets are restricted. So even though the funding may be increased, we can't just use it on general items that would help our budget. The 2021 payable 2022 levy is collected 2022 and then recorded in 22-23. So right now, cities and counties are planning their levy for 2022, and it's for their 2022 budget. We are unique in that we are setting the levy, and it's actually for the following year's budget. So it's a little backwards for school districts. The budget that levy affects will not be approved until, as I said, June of 2022. So we'd be approving that for the 22-23, and then this levy would be incorporated into that budget. And it would have all the district's funds in there: general, food service, community service, building construction, debt service, internal service, which is our self-insurance fund, and then OPEB trust and our OPEB debt service. So this summary is required to be published in the district newspaper, and it breaks down by fund what we actually had for revenues and expenses in the general, all the funds, and then also our current year budget. So the general and restricted and building constructions will continue to go down due to Blueprint 181. As we're spending those funds down, they're going to keep going down. And then the general, other, and food service saw an increase due to COVID savings and CARES funds. And then our internal service, the self-insurance fund, continues to be well-funded. We keep seeing increases in that fund as well. So this was a pie of our revenues, and the levy is about 22.2% of all the revenues that we have budgeted. So it's just a little, it's not a large part of our budget. And then the general fund revenue, just general fund, it's 74.2% of our local revenues is the levy. It sounds like a lot, but our local revenues is only $12 million. So that's why it takes up the majority of it. Other things in that local category would be things like donations, grants, miscellaneous revenues is also in that category.
What percentage you say the levy is?
74.2% of our local revenues. And then this is a graph of our general fund expenditures by program, which is just basically lumping together instructional support, pupil support, buildings and grounds. So 83.4% is instruction or support services. That's what we do, is we work with our students. Fiscal year 20, the district level administration statewide was 4.8%. You can see on the chart we're at 3.8%. So if we were at that 4.8, that would be an additional $889,000 spending on administration. And then this is a general fund expenditures by object. So what are we spending our money on? Salaries, services, supplies. So 78% of that is salaries and benefits, and 76.8% is the state average as of fiscal year 20. So we are spending an additional almost $1.1 million on the salary and wages compared to the state average. So we have the determination of the levy. We'll compare the 21-22 levies, reason for the changes in the tax levy, and then the impact on taxpayers. So every owner will get a tax, they're in a jurisdiction. It'll be with a county, a school district, a township potentially, or a city, and that'll all be broken out on their tax statement. And each jurisdiction has a limit that they are allowed to levy as well. And the county monitor takes care of all this. They're the ones who send out the tax statements, assess the market value, and then they send out the parcel specific notices as well that breaks out each jurisdiction and how much is being levied. And you'll see that that's an example property tax statement, and I'm sure you all got yours as well. One thing to note, those in our district would also have the voter approved because of the referendum that we passed in April 18. So I wanted to touch base on that. So each school district may levy taxes in over 40 categories. The maximum levy amounts are set by state law and voter approval. And then MDE shares all the information on what we can have for a maximum. And then the next slide is key steps of the tax process. So the city or county determines the estimated market value. The legislature sets the formulas. The county auditor calculates the tax capacity within our county. The legislature sets the formulas which determine our levy limits. And then the county auditor divides the final levy and multiplies it by the tax rates to come up with how much you're owed for tax, or you owe for taxes. The school board then adopts the proposed levy in September, which you did, and then you allow for the public hearing and then approve the maximum levy at this board meeting as well. Then MDE calculates the levy limits, which can be approved by the legislature. So the number 6 on there was the one that you guys have control over. The rest we don't have any control over. So on September 8th, the levy limit was shared by MDE. September 29th, the board approved the proposed levy. And then in November, the proposed tax statements went out, and then we're having the public hearing and certification tonight. The proposed tax levy for 2022 is an increase of $110,344 or 0.4%. And reasons for the major changes are included in the following slides. So in the general fund, we saw a decrease of 7.7%. In the community service fund, we saw an increase of 9.7%. And in the debt service fund, we saw an increase of 6.2%. So the explanation of levy changes, in the general fund, there was a large change due to LTFM, which is tied to enrollment. We saw a decrease in enrollment, and then also a change in the property value as well. So when the property values increase, the state aid, or the levy goes up, and then the state aid decreases, so it's actually an offset. And then the other adjustments in the general fund are tied to enrollment. So September of 2020, we set the levy, and you have to project future enrollments as well. So we had an estimate of 6,492 for student enrollment. Our pre-student count right now is 6,170. So in 2021, we actually were down 322 students. And the levy is all tied on enrollment. So if our kids are going down, our levy is going to go down as well, which is why we're seeing that big decrease in the general fund. Debt service, the major changes in here is all tied to Blueprint 181. This is all planning with Ellers, as our voter referendum increase, debt payments increase, they also decrease the other funding buckets that we had tied, just so we keep that flat to stay at that $7 a month. And then Also, debt service had a change for that recent issuance, and it has December 2nd, but it's actually going to be issued December 16th. So that was an error in that. Apologize for that. And then the reduction for future debt planning of $502,000 was just at the recommendation of Ellers if we have future debt issuances related to the projects going forward. Factors that change, you can have a change in your property value. You can have a decrease or increase in the levy. There's many factors that can change your property taxes. It doesn't necessarily have to be tied directly to the school district. So anytime if somebody pulls you aside and says, hey, my taxes are going up, that's one thing I would suggest you have them look at their statement and see which line items are actually going up, because it may not be the school districts. And then the following slides are just comparison of taxes for different properties from 2019 to 2022. You can see there's a 14.1% increase from that time period. Somebody pulls you aside and says, hey, my taxes are going up. That's one thing I would. And examples of this are for the city of Brainerd, and they're based on 2022 preliminary estimates and provided by Ellers. So on this chart, it's a 6% increase in market value for 2022. And you'll see that since our levy is going up only 0.45%, and then the market values are going up 6%, there's actually some decreases in those columns due to that. And then this just is a chart showing different property values. So it would look differently if there was no market value changes from 2019, but there has been some significant ones. So you can see that on a $156,200 residential home, we're actually pretty close to what it was in 2019 due to those market value changes. And then there's a commercial example, an ag example, and then a seasonal rec example as well. I'm just going to skip over those ones. So next steps, the board will accept public comments on the proposed levy and then certify the 2022 property tax levy at the maximum.
No, at the amount.
At the amount, yes.
At the amount.
Yep, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Is there any questions?
Anyone have any questions before we open it up to public comment? Okay, is there anyone here that has public comment regarding our truth and taxation presentation? Okay, I see none, so any other questions or anything for Marcy? Thank you for that presentation, and we've seen it every year. And
Marcy, I did notice on the presentation talks about a 0.4, but on our agenda notes it says 0.45.
Yes, so he cut off the decimal. It's 0.45.
Presentation.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. The amount was correct, the percentage just was one decimal difference.
so this is a resolution, and I need a motion.
I'll move to approve the resolution for the final certified tax levy for taxes 2021 payable 2022. I'll second.
Thank you, Director Blackburn. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, this is a roll call vote.
Kevin Boyles,
Yes.
Tom Hagelin,
Yes.
Ruth Nelson,
Yes.
Jana Shogren,
Yes.
Sarah Spear,
Yes.
Charles Black Lance,
Yes.
all in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. And now we'll go on to recognitions.
We have one recognition tonight, and I'd like to take the time to congratulate Aaron Anderson as he was selected to coach in the 2021 Minnesota Football Coaches Association All-Star Game which will be held at the US Bank Stadium on Saturday, December 4th, or it was held a week ago Saturday. So congratulations to him for being selected to do that. And that's our only recognition tonight.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah,
Congratulations, Erin.
yeah.
Okay, now we'll have our COVID informational update.
You
Oh,
missed
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I didn't really mean to ignore all you wonderful people out there. I just skipped it over on the agenda. Public input is first. This is for any other agenda items.
I'm Nick Hillman, again. Here we are. The board still has yet to listen to the public on the mask mandate. That's truly been made clear. I honestly don't understand. Rewatch videos, watch from August 9th. There was even, the petition with thousands of names from the public that said that the mask mandate was not an option. Yet it was ignored and actually later stated by Chairman Nelson that the public input doesn't really matter. It has been mentioned by the board that you are leaders as well, and even attend leadership trainings. And some of you may have leadership-like qualities, but you're not elected leaders. You're elected public servants. And your job is to represent us and what we say, not the CDC, the FDA, or any other unconstitutional executive orders. And because you were elected by the people can also remove you. Don't forget that. You act like you're above the law and protected in some way. I'm here to tell you, you're not. We the people have more authority than your board or any of its members. You are our servants. That's what you signed up for when running for the school board position. And it also seems with the decision being made that it's like you own our kids and can control our kids. You can't. They are not a product of the state. They are our kids. As Director Hagelin pointed out in one of the past meetings recently, it seems weird to me that we are giving rights back to the parents for their own kids. I would have to agree. It is so ironic that the school board that makes decisions on the education of our kids are so uneducated. Instead of pushing the racial, trans, homosexual agenda, inclusivity, equity, and CRT crap on our kids, go back to the basics. Maybe start by teaching the Constitution and the biblical principles on which this country was founded. Because if you did that, there'd be morals, truth, and love, not racism, division, and hate that your curriculums push. And constitutional right is clearly something this board has never been taught, and I know ISD 181 didn't teach me when I went through this school. Why are all the private schools, Christian schools, and other public schools in our area and around the state and country not having issues with COVID-19 and they don't put masks on their kids? I demand you take this illegal mask mandate off as of 12/14/21 and start acting like public servants, not communist dictators.
So,
You gotta wear their mask.
What's that?
Two aren't wearing masks.
so this is concerning, I did do a data request on Timothy Lensmeyer, and there was a quote, a few of the things that are kind of concerning, and I'm going to talk to Angie some more about it, the gal that I've been working with. There was a quote from July 27, 2021 from a director in ISD 181, and the quote was in one of the emails, it says, "These would not be public school board meetings, but 2 private meetings with up to 3 board members each." And it was a longer quote that was there. As far as I know, to circumvent a public discussion and do private meetings to discuss school business is bordering a violation of the open meeting laws. I don't know if they ever happened because those emails were not in there as far as the back and forth between people. Missing emails that were in the strings or people that were referenced from the school district. There was the director of technology and teaching and learning, director of technology, curriculum instructor, administration assistant, and the assistant superintendent. And there was the direct contact person that Timothy Lensmeyer was going to have. All those emails are not there. So I'm going to be asking for more because it's kind of concerning to me that the information about Timothy Lensmeyer coming here was not out in the open. And transparency, that's huge. So, thank you.
I talked kind of fast, so if that happens, just know that it's recorded, so you can go back and listen to it.
And your name is?
I'm sorry, my name is Keith. I'm not an attorney, and I'm not an attorney spokesman, and no school board members were hurt in the recording of this infomercial, but some of you might be a little bit hurt by the end of it. I'm making statements tonight. I'm not asking you any questions because we can't do that, and I'm not asking you to answer any because you won't. So please don't interrupt me, don't ask me questions, don't play on your smartphone. I'm a man living on the land within the borders of Minnesota, and I'm one of the people that is not subject to all your school board's rules. See, I'm not a school board employee. I'm not a student. You don't rule over parents. That's not how this is set up. I assure you that not hearing what I have to say tonight and taking it very seriously will be extremely detrimental to your position on this board, to your entire board, and you as an individual. Our God-given rights are just that. They're God-given. And from the videos that I've been watching and the complaints I've been getting before I decided to come in here, you're not God. The founding documents in this country and our founding forefathers, like the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution of the United States, the Minnesota Constitution, state and federal statutes, U.S. codes, the American Disability Act, and more, have all been quoted to you in some of these meetings. And you know what? Nowhere in those documents does it say to protect the Brainerd School Board. It says to protect the people. However, my father taught me something. He said, son, don't tell somebody their system's broken if you're not going to offer advice on how to fix it. Here's my advice, one statement, and it's free. Start listening. God gave us 2 ears, 1 mouth, in proportion to listen twice as much. You have not been doing that. So you made up a bunch of your own little rules, just like Timmy the Tyrant, a sandbox bully, about time restraints for people being limited to 3 minutes to talk to you, not answering any questions, don't call out an individual, and your wonderful mask policy. They're hypocritical. How do I know? Because I know where you've been, and you don't wear masks outside of the school board meetings very often. Do you want to see the video? I'll be happy to play it, but if I play it for you, I'm playing it for the whole world. So, you're not dumb, and I'm not trying to insult you or treat you like you're dumb. But more importantly, we the parents, we're not dumb either. And in fact, all across America and across Minnesota, they've been coming to school boards for 4, 5, 6, 7 months, talking about masking and everything else with no recourse, or so you thought. Tonight, we have banded together, and this is the announcement. It starts right here in good old Brainerd, Minnesota. Now, parent members are a little stronger and more resourceful than most school boards. So a little education for you because you're in charge of education, and I'd like you to hear it. Masks don't work. It's right on the box. I know, I spent 16 years in fire rescue. These do absolutely nothing. And to quote our own governor, November 17th on national TV, he knows that what he ordered last year just didn't work. I have news for you. 5 or 10 sick kids in a school district of hundreds or even thousands is not a crisis. It's nice that you had Truth and Taxation Forum tonight. Yep, when the Truth and Mask Money in Public Forum, where's that? In closing, because you think my time is up, I'll share this with you. Your next campaign for running for school board should be masking for money, because that's what you're doing. Okay, so you're on notice tonight, officially. You are violating state statutes, U.S. codes, you're violating policies and procedures that you set about bullying with some of what you're done. And here's the best news.
very much.
You have now pierced the veil of protection that you have as a school board member. You're no longer protected by your insurance. You are each individually, civilly, and criminally responsible. And I have news for you so that you're aware. I know my time's up. I don't care. They don't care either. You know what? When you do that, when you violate U.S. code, you can turn my mic off. I can speak louder.
Recess until
So
we
they
sit
want to have a
down.
recess, so I'll share with you the rest of it. When they break the veil of protection like this, U.S. code allows for a $250,000 lawsuit on each school board member individually. They cannot use tax dollars of the school board's attorney to pay for what they're doing here. See how they handle it? See how they're teaching our children? Walk out. Don't deal with it. Don't listen to the students. Well, guess what? we're gonna get a little louder. Everybody, my name is Keith Haskell. I am an investigator with the National Task Force, and this parent group has hired us to come here. Enjoy your recess. Be sure to bring your mask with you. Yeah.
We'll be back. She'll call it back now.
Spell your last name. Haskel. Just like the
Okay, we'll resume the meeting. And that's all public comment for tonight. So we will go on to the presentation for COVID-19.
Good evening, members of the board. I am going to pull up what's a very similar format that we've been presenting our data in. And again, all of our data can be found under the COVID-19 tab on our district website. We are going to see some shifts in data, which we anticipated. We have made available a rapid take-home test for both students and staff. As the county informed us, as we have availability for more take-home tests, we're going to start to see county numbers decreasing because those positive tests don't have to be reported to the Department of Health. So this is our current county data. You're going to see the cases per 10,000 that we've seen, or what we've been using our data points as, have started to increase. And talking with Crow Wing County Public Health, we're starting to see an uptick in our positive cases between 0 to 18-year-olds, which again are the population we're most concerned about. The other thing we've learned during this is the county is going to start collecting their data and submitting it every Friday. We've been submitting our data on Tuesday nights, so it's current for everybody on Wednesday mornings. So starting this week, we'll switch, and we'll have that current data point to align with Friday, so we see comparisons. So you're going to see a little bit of an off-tick of our data because of those change in data collection points. Currently right now, so when you see the county data was 89, where on the last slide I showed you it was 94.4. That's the difference, is the Tuesday to the Friday data collection point. Our total cases per 10,000 are 109.2. So again, looking at that difference, we've made sure that we have rapid testing available for students and staff. Our parents and staff report those positive cases to us. When we report those positives, they're not being reported to the Department of Health. Only medical providers and our clinics can do a clinical confirmed case of COVID-19 and report those. So as anticipated, and as Michelle Moritz kind of let us know, we'd start to see those differences in numbers. Again, we're trending right with the county. We talk about being a microcosm of the county and Brainerd Public Schools. Just for an example, when you start to see, if you look at last week, we've had the numbers are broken out on that COVID dashboard that we have on the district website. So you can go on there, and on slide 4, you can click on any of our buildings. We're seeing equal spread. The unique thing we're starting to see right now is an uptick in our elementary numbers. Our elementary numbers had stayed pretty small. However, what we're seeing again is that positive household. So once a member in the household tests positive, we're starting to see that transmission pretty much go through the whole household. So looking at the increase, are we concerned about that larger number? Not really, because that's a pretty consistent data point that's been happening across for all of our schools. So again, on our district website, if you go and you click on that COVID-19 tab, there's that presentation right on there. But if you scroll down, I had a parent call again today, where can I find my building? Go to slide 4, and it highlights any and each of our buildings right there. An update from Reichert's. Currently, they're down 4 drivers due to medical. They've had 2 drivers pass away this year now due to complications with COVID, which has also impacted their staffing. We've had 3 routes this week that have had no drivers. However, at this point, all of our activities are covered due to the after-school time period. Great news from just the recruitment and our parents stepping up. We have 1 Forest View trip driver that passed their test today. So that's exciting that person's being accessed. We also had an afternoon route driver pass their test last week, and they're driving, and we have 7 more drivers in the process of training, and they should wrap up over Christmas break. So again, it's just a huge shout out to our community who've stepped up to try to help us support in these significant staff shortage times. And our thoughts are really with Reichert's. Our drivers are really struggling due to the loss of 2 of their colleagues. Additional information, like we've said, there's rapid test available for students and staff. They can be picked up from any building nurse. Crow Wing County in the state of Minnesota is also hosting another vaccination clinic. We'll have access to that here at Washington on December 14th. Any questions?
If students utilize their allotment of rapid tests per student or per family, how do they get more, or are they able to get more or purchase
Yes,
more?
at this time, they can currently request them from the nurse, and we are also in the process of securing more rapid tests for both students and staff. So the state has actually secured 13 more vendors. Part of it has been the delay in getting those test kits, but as they become more available in the state, we can order another supply. So we've been trying to, if a family's asking and they're in need, or if a staff member's concerned, we've been able to provide those yet at this point.
As a family that utilized the test kits a couple times, they're fairly easy, and I definitely appreciate having them.
We have had a few parents report false positives, where their take-home test tested positive, they went to their medical provider and it was negative. So that's why those take-home test kits, that's what we always recommend, is follow up with your healthcare provider. Some of it is, you have to follow the directions pretty closely, like the results come within 15 minutes. Some parents have said, oh geez, I waited an hour. Well, we really have to pay close to that 15 seconds, or 15 minutes, I mean. Some families have left them out in cars. Well, when it gets to be below 0, that's gonna impact the test kit as well. So I think if some of those concerns, we just really have advised our parents to continue to talk to their medical providers if they have any questions or concerns.
And you said the county has them available too, is that correct?
Pardon me?
The county has rapid test kits?
The county has started to secure more. Our goal in the school is just make sure they're readily available for our families and staff, so. But I think as they become more available in the state, they're trying to get those out. And then, again, that's what the county's saying in data. A lot of families can go to Walgreens or Walmart and you can purchase one as well. So the more people that are taking those tests at home, they're calling us and reporting those. However, then that report to us doesn't mandate a report into the Department of Health. They don't count the at-home test kits.
We still report.
We still report, but again, even when we file our red caps, they don't put that into the count.
So that's why we're seeing our numbers edge up more.
And the county anticipated that, as the availability for families to be able to do that at home becomes available. That's what they anticipated with the change. So,
Can we dive back into the data slide again for a
sure,
second, please?
let me,
And I'll apologize in advance because I think my line of questioning here is going to sound a little more challenging than it's really intended to be. So
Okay.
please take that, in stride if you would.
I will, but let me, Janet, where did it go? If I closed out, hang on. Care, summary, nope, they're all down here. That's Marcy's email. Okay, we'll pull it back up, but the data slide, are you looking for because I can go to another.
Yeah, I guess what I'm looking for is anything that we can kind of cling to in the data that we have available to us, whether it's from the county, whether it's from the households that we get at the district level, that can help us kind of quantify what, if any, impact the actual masking is having. And as Director Sjogren mentioned several meetings ago, obviously you can't measure prevention, right? But as Director Blackland says in lots of meetings, I'm always curious to see what we can quantify, because I do think we have a significant portion of the community that has willingly gone along with the mask mandate since early September, and I think, we at least owe it to them to have a more broad discussion about it. And then frankly, I think we owe it to them to have another action item on it at our next meeting in January, because we have a new board member, and I think it's time to, at minimum, reaffirm where every board member sits as it relates to the mask mandate.
So, again, to quantify it will be difficult, as it's been through this whole time. When the decision was made regarding masking, one of the requests from parents as well, so again, we've heard lots of opinions, was some parents didn't have the choice or the ability to choose a vaccination for their child back then. Right now, we know vaccinations are available for all children 5 and above. So that makes a difference in some of the parents who are concerned that they didn't have that choice, let's say in August and September when these discussions were happening. So I think there's an additional layer of mitigation that's now in existence that didn't exist before. In addition, one of the other things we've had is rapid testing. So at that time, it was difficult for families and staff to find rapid testing. That's another mitigation strategy that's now been in place. That wasn't in place in August and September when we first put these situations in place. The other piece is we haven't had to quarantine. So at this point in time, we've only had to quarantine 2 early childhood classrooms. And so part of that is the guidance with the face coverings. Again, it doesn't prevent COVID-19. Nobody's ever said here that it prevents COVID-19. What we've been advised is it slows transmission. So when we're looking at classrooms with kids in close quarters or in large classroom sizes that exist at our middle school and high school, that was one of the advisements of what's another layer or mitigation strategy you can put in place. The mask was one of those strategies.
Thank you.
So, but to your point, there's different mitigation that exists now that didn't exist in August and September that was of concern when we first addressed this.
We continue to not see the transmission at the school. It's really the majority, I mean, the vast majority is transmission in households. So I think there's, outside of maybe one early childhood classroom where we saw potential for transmission in the school, outside of that, we have seen none. Well, that's a good indication that mask.
Compared to last year, we quarantined a lot of classrooms last year. So when you started to see 2 and 3 positives existing within that classroom, and we had a positive, that classroom was quarantined. At this point in time, we've not had that, with the exception of, like I said, 2 of the early childhood classrooms, where we knew then their positive student led to another positive student because we had no positives within their households. So that's where we see a school-to-school transmission. So we have not seen that as much to this point. So.
Heidi, can you, I see your backup. Are you able to get to that data? page,
Which one are you looking for?
or- It's this one. There you go.
Yep.
So am I looking at, I mean, at least at this snapshot on time, we have a higher per 10,000 case rate in the schools versus the county per this snapshot? Okay.
Yep, and again, in talking with public health, people who take an at-home test and test positive, they call the school and tell us positive. That positive that's reported to the school does not go into the county count, because the only numbers that go into the county count are those tests that are done at a clinic, that are a clinically confirmed positive case of COVID. So now that we've been able to get rapid testing out to families, we're getting more of those positive calls.
So is this benchmark no longer valid then?
That's what our question is. And so, and like I talked about, right now, the 2 data points are off because we've been doing our data on Tuesday nights, which used to align with the county. Now they started to do them on Fridays. So we'll start to do that.
Why is that? Why did they make that change?
Part of it is testing and the delay in testing. And so what she feels is the more accurate measure is going to be localized data. And what the county's paying attention to is the number of severity of cases, hospitalizations, things that are happening that way. So they're really starting to focus on hospitalizations and deaths as a measure, just because so many more people have access to testing.
Wouldn't it be fair, though, to think also there's a lot of people in the county that are self-testing, maybe positive, and they're also not reporting?
Correct.
So one might assume that we're still maybe tracking the same kind of.
You would think we're tracking pretty similar, and that's, again, from the county perspective. She, again, this is working with their supervisor. She advised us that the more test kits that become available and the positives, again, because those won't be reported, take-home tests aren't reported to the state compared to the clinic. If I go to Essentia has to report my positive. So schools, we still report, but they don't put those into the count. So you're gonna start to see the numbers skew. But to your point, you would think the same would happen to families in the community. That's why she's saying a more significant measure would be looking at trends. So when we talked about those age lines trends, and then again, hospitalizations, deaths. So if you're seeing all those things uptick, then you know even if this number starts to go down and those are going up, that's where they have advised concern on a county level. But given those points, should we potentially look at a different way to measure data? Potentially.
I mean, it's almost rendered irrelevant, right? Because you could have thousands of people in the county that are going, that are infected, don't even know because they don't test, they just stay home from work or whatever. B, they go to Walgreens or Walmart and they buy the over-the-counter tests. I bought one. And they take them, and then that's obviously not shared with anybody. So the reality is we have no idea what the county numbers are, but we have a really good idea what the school numbers are.
Yeah, and we played fun trivia with our nurses. We meet with our nurses every week. And I think at this point, we're just under 2,000 entries into our COVID tracker. So if a family calls and says their child's sick or they've been exposed to a positive, we're monitoring that. We're calling families, we're following up. So I do feel as a district, we have a very strong hold on our own localized data.
And I've got my head around that. My issue, I think, is maybe where Director Haglund was going a little bit, is by having this on our district dashboard, not everybody watches this meeting and hears this dialogue. So they're
Yeah.
looking at that number and.
Well, and then this is where when I've talked to families too, if there's really concern, like at any point in time, our data's live. So if I go to NISWA, and again, I want to blow this up. But it shows a number of positives. So the last week, there were 2 positive students in NISWA. There was 1 positive staff member. So they can see at every district and go back and just pick their building. So if I'm a parent of concern, all that data is broken out and we update it for families every week as well. So again, I feel like locally, when you are trying to make local decisions, we have set up a system where we can monitor that very closely. Which again, wasn't in existence in August and September.
Yeah, I
We
think
have that available.
Yeah, the monitoring is great and it's current and updated. But it somewhat feels like we don't have, you know, what data we're using then to reduce the mask and eventually eliminate. It seems like maybe it's skewed, not skewed, but it's like perhaps that's not gonna work anymore.
It doesn't align like it did when that rubric was developed.
Yeah, and
because of the
you know,
changes.
Yeah, and that's a critical thing with, you know, where the mask mandate was passed with the assumption that it's helping, and I think that's what our community is asking, and you know, personally myself as well, because when I am out in the public, I don't wear a mask regardless of where I go, and I don't see that. I don't know if we've got a good correlation, so I think it seems like it's appropriate that we have to revisit it. Maybe now isn't the time, or it's in January. I don't know what's, if that was.
I guess my
maybe
thought was we go through Christmas break and then the way our meetings fall in January, you know, that we do a holistic revisit of it. Because I think at some point, my concern when we did this, even though I voted for it, was that we would always find a reason to keep the masks on. And it's almost like we're at a point where, because of what's going on in the county as a whole, you know, and they're tracking deaths and hospitalizations, and I get that, right? We need to probably rethink it from a data, because now we have a matrix on how to unmask, but it's no longer relevant because it's tracking the data that doesn't exist.
And that's where I think if we want to revisit and go more localized, and again, I think from August to September, as we've marched through this, there's some very different mitigation strategies that are available. And I think that's the other layer that's been
And listen, there
added.
is no recrimination or critique of anything that we've done from the board on down. I don't care what anybody else sat in a chair and said tonight about it, right? That's not the point of my comments. My point of my comments is to move forward, not to look backwards. Rearview mirror is smaller than the windshield for a reason. But we got to try to figure out some sort of rationale that we can use to either do a reset or something where we can come up with something, because again, to the point of the people that spoke earlier, I mean, that's our job.
I just tried to do a little looking myself on vaccination rates. You know, you can tell who's getting, I don't know if those numbers exist yet for 5 to 11-year-olds.
They're starting to, because that's been available. We could get those from.
Because I agree with what you said, Heidi. You know, we have additional mitigation strategies in place, and I think it's worth a revisit, and I think that would be a piece of data that we would need is how many of our 5 to 11-year-olds in our district are protected by the vaccine.
And I bring that up just because in initial meetings in August, that was some of the parents' concerns is I don't have the same option for my child as some others might. I feel like those options are now available for families that didn't necessarily exist when we first had these discussions.
I think that would just, when we talk about data, I think that'd be a piece of data that I would be trying to find, or if you could help us find it, or make sure we have the latest and greatest
Day
info.
back from school is January 3rd.
Correct.
Again, I've absorbed enough time. I just wanted to kind of bring that up. I think again, we owe it to everybody from the educators to the students to the community to do a full revisit of it at some point. And whether that's at the January 10th meeting, that feels a little early given the kids will only be back in 1 week and from Christmas vacation, but maybe a special meeting or
School
something.
board meeting will be the 10th, so the first meeting's the 10th, and then if we have a second meeting that month, it'd be the 24th. And we are planning a second meeting in January, so that would be the 24th.
I do think.
prefer to do it the 24th.
I do think we have very strong localized data that can be looked at just from that perspective.
Is at minimum, I think, one of the things that we discussed early on, and I think there was a little bit of miscommunication, so some of us walked out of here with some misperceptions that were probably our own fault, so it's not on anybody, but the idea that once we got to this ability to track this data down to the school building, that we could control it better and we could do more, and perhaps if we had certain buildings that were doing better than others, depending on how it all worked out, that there was maybe a way to kind of look at it through that lens as well.
Definitely.
So what's the purpose of waiting? Are we trying to gather more data?
I think maybe the cause is we know holidays, so like people came back from Thanksgiving, we saw an uptick of positives. Just again, because we're seeing household transmissions, so when you look at families getting together, then you started to see more students, then it downticks. So we see the same thing, MEA break, students were out extended time or with family extended time, upticks. Thanksgiving, and it's the same thing we've heard since the start of the pandemic, large gatherings tend to happen around breaks or holidays.
Yeah, so ideally that 10th meeting would be the 16th, so you'd have the full 14-day incubation period to evaluate. That's why the 10th is concerning.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but I just, what's the data gonna tell us?
I think that's if you're looking for a different way to make decisions around data, that would be needing to be discussed.
I think that from where I sit, it's very important that we map a pathway away from the mask in the classroom. We must do that. And the data is there to help us provide that mapping.
Correct.
And I think we're at the place now where we can take a few steps more comfortably towards or on that pathway away from the masks. I don't want to go forward without data.
No.
Then we're just going off of emotion.
Correct.
We need that data to be part of that pathway.
And that's why I think it's all here. So you can look at trends in buildings.
Well, one trend I do notice is if families are transmitting it to each other at home unmasked and kids are not transmitting it to each other at school masked, I don't know. There could be a correlation there.
It's just, there's different, in school we're moving and we have lots of cleaning protocols and ventilation and things like that. At home, people are home, and our little, so I can see both sides. It's the same thing. That's why the transportation piece still sits there, is they're enclosed and it's a very enclosed space where we have different
And the
options.
executive order was extended through March?
Through March, correct, for transportation.
So I'm pleased that the children have the opportunity to vaccinate if their families so choose, which that wasn't part of the variable when we put this into effect.
And the
So-
access to testing was huge.
Right,
That's been a huge
access to
game changer
testing.
too.
So I'm excited about those opportunities for families to be safe and to put that ownership back in the hands of the family. I think that's very crucial.
So I can look at different ways to display the data, and I can also look at phases. We did implement the one phase 912, so we can explore phases of how we do that and bring that forward as
So in
well.
theory, you would go through that exercise, maybe come up with a couple of proposals for how to slice the data and do a reevaluation of the rubric. We could discuss it at the January 10th meeting and act on it at the January 24th meeting.
We can do whatever you'd like with the data.
I hate to send Heidi back to do a bunch of work.
I do
the
too, but
data
we gotta
is
find a
there.
new, we
It's
gotta find a new
it's all
measurement
there, but
methodology that we can publish,
I
because this
agree.
doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, I agree with the rubric we created doesn't align anymore. So if that's what we're gonna hang our hat on, we're never gonna get
Right.
different. And there's, again, I think I've said 5 times, maybe even more tonight, there's different mitigation that we've had. That's now available when we heard the concerns of families initially. That's now changed, so.
I know we're working with public health. Is there opportunity to pull in like any of our healthcare staff? I know just from the ads and the pleas this weekend, it feels like there's a disconnect between what we're talking about here at the district, what the healthcare community is talking about, and even what the county is facing. And this is one community. It would be nice to be aligned on whatever that is.
We can ask. I know,
I know our
public health, we work,
hospitals are maxed to the
yeah, we work,
limit.
No,
and so-
understood. If the takeaway in January is that we just divorce ourselves from the county data altogether because it no longer serves the purpose of what we need it to do, and we find that's a starting point for me. I'm just saying right now it's like we're doing paternity tests with rabbits, and that's 50-year-old technology, right? We want to use a more current methodology for how to analyze the data we have. I don't really want the two of you to go through what you went through before, where you were sorting through tons and tons of stuff, but at some point, we got to flip the script here a little bit.
that's fine. And I think getting that input, we've asked originally when we started this, all of our healthcare providers to give guidance or input. We did not receive that. We worked very close with public health. Public health has provided us this guidance. So I know working directly with Michelle Moritz, who's public health supervisor, she's been happy to do that. And she too is the one who said, just know the shift in data is occurring. So I think she's very cognizant of it as well.
I mean, the last time that we did this kind of shift, right, it actually made it a little bit simpler, I think. Maybe I'm overstating that and minimizing the work you guys did on the latest version.
It made it very black and white tied to data.
More
But
concise,
again,
right?
now,
So the argument could be made that doing that, getting the county data out of there and going to a more localized look at it becomes even simpler yet. The hard part's the decision-making around it, not really the measurement, in my mind.
To decide when,
Right.
what are our new lines gonna be, because with the
Yeah.
increased.
Again, I don't want the two of you going through what you went through before. I totally don't want to see that
I
again.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
And everybody else, I mean, but primarily you two.
Well, we've created a data system now where it's,
very-
at any point in time, you could call and say, what's happening at Baxter, what's happening in this, we have it all there. We've worked very closely and have developed a system with all of our nurses. We've prioritized having nurses in buildings. So I do feel like we have immediate response and can answer those questions very readily. It's just been a lot to put together at.
Agreed. But as usual, Director Blackland said it succinctly, which is a skill I lack. We need a path.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll talk about it some more on the 10th and maybe do a new vote on the 24th.
Is that what the decision is? Because we'll, okay.
Thank you.
Can we take action on the 10th or no?
I would prefer not to, just because we won't have enough data from after the holidays. But we can, I mean, the board always has that prerogative. If you want to make a motion and
Wouldn't you
someone seconds it.
Sure. Wouldn't you anticipate the data is going to be, it's going to show higher?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about just trying to figure out now what the path forward is, regardless of what the data is, right?
Oh, so just making a vote on what the new path forward is.
Yeah, I mean, so we have a clear path. We decided a clear
Sure.
path a few weeks ago, but now we're realizing it's probably not valid. So we need to come up with another new clear path, and we can come up with that path with the data that we already have.
I'm fine with voting on the new path forward on the 10th.
As am I.
Yeah.
And again, it needs to just be stated for everybody watching that the school district didn't move the goalposts here, the county did. And the way that the data is coming in because of the testing methodology, it's nothing anybody did wrong, right, or whatever. It's just a change in how everything got measured.
Well, it's the advent of take-home tests has changed it.
Understood. It's just, when you get accused of a lack of transparency, it's important to point out the obvious, which is that the paradigm has shifted.
Yeah.
It isn't that we changed our minds now, we're shifting to adjust to it.
Okay. Anything else on the COVID? I think we've well discussed that. Okay, now we'll go on to the approval of the minutes. November 22nd school board meeting.
I'll move to approve the meeting
I
minutes.
guess we can do both of them at the same time if you'd like.
I'll move to approve both the regular and special school board meeting minutes from November 22nd and December 6th.
Second. Is that Director Hagelin for the second?
Doesn't matter. John's got it.
Sjogren, okay. So we have a first from Director Boyles, a second from Director Sjogren. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up, we have the consent calendar.
Move to approve?
I'll second.
First from Director Hagelin, a second from Director Blacklands. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And next up is our employee support plan presentation.
Were you able to get it up?
I didn't put, it's just the hard copies of that.
So there's nothing up there? I can share it with you.
Do you want to begin by just introducing it? And then?
Yeah, I will. And I know Heidi's gonna start putting it together, but as everyone is aware, we've talked through the meetings about just some of the difficulties that have occurred over the actually 3 school years that we've been facing with COVID-19. And We've been hearing a lot from people both at the board meeting, but we've had several telephone calls, we've had emails, much communication, also from our staff that have shared some of the concerns with what's happening within their job changes, with staffing shortages, and with a whole number of things regarding COVID. And so tonight what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a presentation and a recommendation on how to try to accommodate some of the excessive changes to our job duties that many of our employees that I look out into the audience tonight are facing and are feeling extremely fatigued with. And I'm going to take you through something that I put together called the Employee Support Plan. And this is coming from me tonight, but it is a compilation of work from a number of people. I know several board members have heard from many of our staff members about the stresses that they're feeling this year. I know even in negotiations, we've had those conversations. We've had some meetings with Reichert's to talk about some of the stresses that they're feeling in the transportation department. Last week, Heidi and Angie met with representatives from every one of our union groups within our school to talk about some of the stresses that people are feeling and a plan for trying to support our employees as hopefully we can get through this thing very shortly. So Heidi is going to, and I'm going to ask her to jump in anytime that I might miss something as I'm talking today, but she's going to go through the screen that we have. And so the first slide says, why am I bringing forth this recommendation tonight? And we know that through these 3 school years that we've been faced with this, that we have seen a significant amount of mental health issues coming forward with our students and within our staff members that have been adjusting to the many changes that COVID has caused. We've also seen a significant increase in student attendance and staff attendance and illnesses over the course of this time. As we've shared at many, many, many school board meetings, we have a significant staff shortage, requiring the staff that are there to work overtime and outside of their assigned duties. And many of the shortages are in absolutely every area that we have. And we have openings and we don't even have applicants to fill the positions. As we hear throughout our business community that is really something that's affecting our nation. We've talked during our meetings about the transportation concerns and the lack of bus drivers and the illnesses that have been inflicting our transportation department. And I know Representatives from Reichert's came and met with me last week, and they sent another letter today saying, please help us. We just don't know how to continue to provide the services that we've agreed to provide. We also know that there's been some learning loss and model changes over the course of the last 3 years that our staff have been faced with, having to adjust from one model to the next and not knowing if we're going to be in person or if it's going to be an online model. As a result of last year in particular, we've definitely seen an increase in student behaviors at every single level in our school. And the intensity of the behaviors has gotten much greater that our staff have been facing with on a daily basis. And this is definitely causing a lot of low employee morale, fatigue. People are feeling like they're just exhausted. And as I put at the bottom of the screen, we need to take care of one another during these difficult times. And what I want the staff and families to know is that we're listening and we're trying to adjust to provide some of the supports so that you are better able to provide the supports that our children need. And another thing that I want you to know is that throughout the state of Minnesota, district leaders are looking at these kinds of recommendations to help adjust for the concerns that are being brought forward in each of their schools. So as I said, we had a number of communications that we had, and so what we decided to do last week was to hold a meeting with representatives from each of our union and our unit leadership groups throughout our district. And so I want to thank Heidi Hahn and Angie Bennett and those of you in the room that were at that meeting for coming together to talk about what some of the stressors are that are going on in our school. And what are some of the things that you think that could definitely help to make the rest of this year a really productive year so that we're providing as the best education that we can and that our practitioners are really in a good place in which to provide the high quality instruction and the supports that our children need. Some of the things that came out of the meeting, recommendations that came out of the meeting were that they could use additional staff in all areas. They also talked about the fact that time was really an important factor in moving forward. Time for lesson preparation, time for the cleaning that goes along with keeping rooms and classrooms ready for our children. Follow up with families and students, whether it's educational follow-up, report cards, those kinds of things. Kitchen deep cleaning, food ordering, and many, many more things. But because every group that was there had different stresses that they were being faced with, that they felt that time would be helpful to them. They also asked, would it be possible to extend our winter break so that it's 2 full weeks so that we could get a break starting next Monday. And when representatives from Reichert's met with me last week, they asked the same thing. And one of the slides I'll show you is that we walked through the school calendar to talk about the pros and the cons of that. Another suggestion that came out of that meeting was courtesy care for school staff after school and during the work time when school is not in session. Stipends that are similar to what other school districts are giving to honor the extra work that our staff are completing and the extra job duties that they're taking on. And also, is there a way of decreasing the workload requirements? And so these were some of the takeaways that came from that meeting after they met last Wednesday. So following that meeting, and ever since that we've been getting this communication, one of the things that we've been doing is we've been reviewing different forms of data. And so some of the things that we've done is we've taken a look at our current calendar. We've taken a look at the instructional minutes and how our school calendar fits compared to the state law and requirements and other districts. And one of the things that I will share with the board is that we still have 6 days above and beyond what the school or what the state requires of schools for school days. And so we have 171 days in our calendar. The state is 165. And so we have 6 additional days beyond the state. Transportation shortages, we looked at that and we listened to that as I shared. We looked at the student attendance and the mental health needs that are being identified. And I know we had a presentation from just at the last school board meeting that talked about some of the mental health issues with our students. Staff absences and mental health needs. Student behavior and the referrals, we looked at those. We looked at the CARES funding, or the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act funding, and what amount of money is available to us from the federal level to help with these types of things, and what kind of supports qualify for use of those funds. We also looked at substitute postings, unfilled positions, and additional professional development trainings that are being required of our staff. And we tried to take a look at all of those things to say, what is it that we can do to help to support our staff as we move forward for this year only. So in this plan tonight, or this presentation that I'm providing to you, the next slide, do you want to hit? Thank you, Heidi. I'm going to be addressing 5 different aspects that I would like to recommend as part of this plan. I'm going to bring forward first a look at the school calendar and some adjustments that I feel that we could make that could give some relief and reprise to our staff as we move forward for the school year. I'm going to talk about some stipends for our regular staff, for all regular staff members. I'm going to talk about access to some increased access for free mental health services for staff and for our students, again, that are available that this district can help to support. Some increased wages for those employees that are willing to take on and work additional time with our targeted services programs to help close the achievement gap for those who have lost some educational needs throughout this process. And also some increased wages for certified staff who are substituting for colleagues during their prep period. Because many times we cannot find substitutes to cover classrooms, and so teachers are going in, giving up their prep time and filling the classroom periods and having no prep time at all during the day. It's all done at night, every night. So these are the following slides that we're going to talk about. The first one in my recommended plan tonight is to take a look at our school calendar. I seriously looked at the calendar with the request that was brought forward to take all of next week off and to have a 2-week holiday break for staff, students, families. And it just, for a couple of different reasons, it just did not feel like the right decision for me. One is that it's rather quick to let people know. Secondly, when we looked at the school calendar with all of the groups and looked at that we have, 5.5 months ahead of us yet, I felt that it was much better to give breaks periodically through the course of the next 5.5 months rather than clumping all the days and then not having these kinds of breaks throughout the year. So the recommendation that I have for the board tonight is that on Monday, January 3rd, the first day back for school, that would be a staff work day only where they could work, do preparations, and to get ready to go into the second semester, to end the first semester strong and to prepare for going into the second semester. There would be no students until Tuesday, January 4th, but staff would be here for work that day. January 17th is a scheduled in-service, and one of the things that we've worked with Tim Murtha on is that we're going to have a half-a-day professional development and a half-a-day work day in the classroom or within the programs that people are assigned to with their jobs. And to decrease the amount of professional development that we're requiring of staff and to give them a little more time in their classroom. February 18th would be a staff work day as well. There would be no students around that President's Day weekend, but staff would report and would use that as a work day to catch up and to be able to meet the needs moving forward in the next trimester. March 4th is a pre-scheduled in-service right now, and again, we'd use half of it for professional development, half a day to work with colleagues, to work within departments, and to also work in their classrooms, just as we're looking at for January 17th. And then finally, April 18th is the Easter weekend break, and what I'm recommending here is that we give one additional paid holiday for all employees, so everyone has a 4-day weekend as we move forward to try to give some breaks as we move through the spring. And so my recommendation is to do the 3 additional days, but to do them scattered throughout the rest of the school year rather than clumping them into December. The next slide talks about longevity stipends. And this is something that has been, many schools throughout the state are using their CARES dollars to help provide support to the employees. And so what would happen here is that all current regular employees that began their employment this year, and this is for all employees throughout the district that are hired by the school, that were here as of December 15th, 2021, they would receive a $500 stipend. $250 would be paid in January of 2022. And if they remain here for the remainder of the school year, the last $250 would be paid to them the beginning of January. For all employees that were here last year and this entire school year, the amount would be $500 that would be paid in January. And for those who finish out the school year with us, that it would be $500 that they would receive in early July of 2022. Part-time employees would receive the prorated stipend amount. The third recommendation that I have in my plan tonight is access to mental health services. Brainerd Public Schools will provide mental health supports for our employees that consist of 3 30-minute sessions at no cost to the employees. What we would provide to our staff if they felt they needed these services is that we would use our district wellness dollars to provide supports for our staff members. And our children, we have mental health and crisis services for our students right now in school, and all of those services would remain, and we would continue to work with our kids to see to it that they got the services that they needed as well. The fourth recommendation in this plan is a targeted services stipend. And this is a situation where teachers are eligible for a one-time recruitment and retention stipend of $360 if they complete the targeted services session, which is during the months of 2022. I believe it's January to March, somewhere in there that the first session is. We are having a really difficult time finding people that are willing to, or feel that they can even give that extra time to do the additional targeted services work to help close the achievement gap for our learners that need those extra, that little bit of an extra push. And so there'd be a $360 stipend if they did the first session. And if they did the second session as well, a second session, they would get an additional $468 because that would be all the targeted services programs that we would have in the spring. And so this would be a stipend that we would give to these people who are willing to provide these additional academic supports for our children. Paraprofessionals that agree to work with targeted services during these times would receive additional compensation of a $200 stipend per session that they work, in addition to their applicable overtime that is already part of their contract. The clerical staff that agree to work during targeted services would receive additional compensation on a $100 stipend in addition to their applicable overtime that is in their contract at this time. And I want everyone to know that this is funded through the targeted services budget, so it wouldn't impact the general fund. It would impact our targeted services budget that we have. And finally, the last recommendation that I have in this plan for trying to help alleviate some of the stresses that are going on is to have teachers would be eligible for an additional stipend of $10 each time that she or he agrees to substitute for a colleague during his or her prep time. This payment would be in addition to their hourly rate that they get now in their collective bargaining agreement, but it would be an additional $10 every time that they agree to give up their prep time. Because we know that if they're not prepping during the day, they're going to be adding that extra hour or 50 minutes onto their time at home each night on top of the work that they already do to make sure that they're prepping for their lessons the following day. The payment of the stipend would be calculated based on the number of times that a teacher substituted for a colleague during that pay period or month and would be added to their paycheck. The recommended start date of this retroactive work would begin November 1st of 2021. And so that is the 5-point plan that I'm bringing forward to the board tonight. And at this time, I would like just to open it up to any questions that you have. And then again, I just want to thank you for listening to the concerns that have been brought forward. And this is open to have a great dialogue and conversation.
With the stipend, I like the idea of the stipend. And I just wanted to make sure, and I know you and I have talked about this, but these dollars are being pulled from dollars that would more than likely go back anyway.
Right, they are from the CARES dollars and the federal dollars that I talked about for coronavirus relief. This qualifies for stipends for all of our staff. And you're absolutely right. But we have the money in those CARES funds to cover what the stipends would come to.
And so this isn't a pot of money that we would be able to
It does
stash
not.
away for a rainy day later on. This is something we must spend
Correct.
within a period of window now.
Correct, and many Minnesota schools right now are doing this because they're having the same shortages and concerns that we're having.
Right?
And then just to clarify, all staff is every
Everybody.
group. Full-time, part-time, clerical, secretarial, custodial,
Yes.
teachers, administrators, everyone.
Yep, everybody that's an
Under it.
employee of the school district. And if they're part-time, it would be prorated, so, yeah.
So on the targeted services stipend specifically, is that CARES money, or is that just a typical budget?
That is out of our targeted services
So
budget.
is there a reason we couldn't tap CARES for that too, or does it matter?
We could do that.
You could, and I know we have Jessica here. We have had additional dollars that have come into that targeted service budget. Part of the delay has been we haven't been having targeted services due to some of the learning interruption. The other part is we haven't been delivering targeted services because at the end of the day, teachers haven't wanted to stay for an additional 2.5 hours to continue to instruct. So there's been some money that's been sitting there, so that's a way to bring that learning back in.
So the fiscal impact is negligible, is what you're saying?
Yeah,
Correct.
It would be, yeah. Did I misspeak? No, that was accurate. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I would just like to say a couple of things. One, I think the extra money is nice and needed, but I think what our staff, and that's showing that we're grateful to all of our staff for all the extra work they're doing. I think that extra time either off or to prepare is what they need the most. And I've always been one of those school board members that said each minute our student has with our qualified staff is the most important thing. So I don't like to cut back on student learning days. But in this case, with the extreme circumstances that we have had in the past 2 years, I think it's needed. I don't think, we have quality teachers, we have quality aides, but their quality has been downgraded because they're so exhausted. So I think that's even more important for our staff to have that extra time, either to prepare or off. And so I'm in support of that, and I'm also in support of the extra dollars, but I think the extra time off is what's going to be most appreciated based on what I've seen.
So I like the time off. I think that'll be helpful. And that's like for February, other than my birthday, which is February 14th, there isn't much else going on in
You were
February,
a
to be honest.
Valentine birthday?
Yes. But how do, and I might have been briefed on this, but how are we supporting those individuals that even though school might be closed, on a snowy day, might still have to work? So like the maintenance crews and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Can you remind me how we're doing that?
Well, that's a great question. First of all, January 3rd, I gotta find the dates here, in February 18th, excuse me. Those days, everybody still reports, but those are catch-up days to work on their job. So if they're part of the building and grounds department, it's a day where they can catch up with some of the cleaning and the sanitizing that they've got to do, that they're feeling really swamped at it, to catch up. I'm looking out here and I see so many of our paraprofessionals out there who have just been godsends at helping to cover so many of our bus routes and our childcare and the extra duties that you've gone on. It helps you to catch up with your jobs during those days as well. For the teachers, for instance, it's prep time, or it's time that they can work with to connect with their colleagues within their departments or their grade levels. because they're just feeling right now, because of the staff shortage, that even during the prep time, they're covering for other people's jobs and they're not being able to team with their partners. And so it's going to be great catch-up times for that. The only day where that would be affected would be the April 18th, which is the Monday, giving everybody in the school a 4-day break in the month of April after a long winter, and just giving everybody 4 days. And we would just accommodate that by shutting down so that everybody had that day off, and it would be a paid day off because it's in our, we've got it in our budget already.
Hey,
Go ahead.
Charles answered that question too. So if there's some staff that have to work, so maintenance, right? Or if there's some requirement to come in, we can allot a floating holiday, which
Yeah,
allows them to take that holiday at a different time. And that has been in place during some different circumstances when there's a lot of people that can leave, but there's a fraction of people who cannot. So it's being sensitive. And that's some of the input I think you both received with meeting with those groups. So being able to have that flexibility.
That's great, thank you.
Yeah, I love, and as we've discussed in other discussions, right, the idea of spreading those days out instead of just chunking them all on the end of the thing will probably have a heck of a lot more impact for everybody, right? Positive for parents, they don't have to scramble to plan for 2 weeks. Kids get more of a break, and especially our staff gets a break, which is great. Which leads me to one more question about the 2 half-day professional development sessions.
Yes.
Are those additive to what we normally have, or is that catching one up somewhere that we?
Actually, those 2 were already in our calendar and they were full professional development days. And what we're doing is just, we're gonna downsize some of that professional development, make it very focused or targeted. One of which is technology. So there's things we can do which then frees up the afternoon, then to allow more work time in that classroom or some planning or prep or some other areas. And all of our groups talked about, there's just a different level of work that can sometimes happen in planning when we don't have.
Okay, so that
Constant places
keeps us in the statutory guardrails for the number of those that we have
Yep, so
to
those
do.
2 days were already planned.
Yep.
And existed in the calendar. It's just us rearranging what we have on the agenda for all staff that day.
Yeah, Charles and I had the opportunity to sit in on this meeting with Heidi and Angie and some of the, across the units, and I really appreciated the time to have that dialogue with folks, and I think they appreciate it. In fact, they expressed that they'd like to have more of those days where they could talk across units, and it was really good for us to listen in, because what is helpful for one unit, as Charles stated, might put pressure on another unit, but I can appreciate this plan. I do think there's balance in it. While one part of the plan might pressure point one spot, I think another part of the plan helps. So I appreciate the well-balanced plan. And one of the other concerns that I had in additional days off is you always think about those families who maybe have limited opportunities for childcare or whatever that might be. And so I just want to recognize that we know that that could be a pain point for parents too. One of the things that helped me feel more comfortable with it too is thinking, we live in Minnesota, we have snow days where we get 2 hours notice sometimes to figure out what to, how to care for our kids. So I feel like while I want to recognize that that could put pressure on families, I hope that, we recognize that we do try to figure that out on snow days. So at least we have good planning time and lead time on it. So I just appreciate the work put into this.
Yeah, and as you can tell, in the beginning of this presentation, when we talked about some of the major points that came out of that meeting, I hope everybody feels that we tried to find a happy medium, because you're right, everybody has different needs based on what their job is, and we really tried to find a well-rounded plan for trying to say thank you for the additional work that people are doing, understanding that there's a lot of stress going on right now, and just addressing the supports that they're asking for. And so it's not perfect. I won't even pretend that this is a perfect plan, but I think it's the best plan for meeting as many of the needs as we can for our entire staff.
Well, what I love the most about it is, I got to say, this is the most collaborative piece of work that I've seen your administration produce on this scale, where literally everybody at this table had a thumbprint somewhere along the way on it, all the way down to all the units and every layer within the district. And it was, excellent work.
This is an incredible district with absolutely fabulous, fabulous employees. I look out here today and I literally get tears in my eyes because our people they're the best of the best, and they have given their heart and soul through a really, really difficult time. And so thank you for recognizing that, because we're just really proud of the work that we have pulled out of this over the course of the last 3 school years that have been very difficult and very challenging. And so
I do appreciate the opportunity, Lane and and Heidi, to be invited in to meet with the staff during the, I guess, brainstorming session about how we can get to this point. As a school board member, I've learned in my 3rd year that decisions are difficult, but in all situations, context is king. And it definitely provided us the opportunity to hear that context from the staff. And I was very pleased at that opportunity.
And then I think the last thing I would say is we recognize, this is a huge effort. We also recognize that it's the best we can do with what we have available to us. We want it to be more. We understand the stress. We understand the effort, but we're doing what we can with what we have available to us. And I wish it was more, especially at Christmas.
But that's why we asked too that at least part of it be paid in January to help people through the holidays. And we know that everything has gone up in prices, and just to try to accommodate that. And then the last half for those who finish the year strong with us, then we will have a second payroll to accommodate that.
I think this is a great use of this funding, and I think it's phenomenal that we all came together on a plan for this. Kevin mentioned the collaboration, but even just ironically, I had someone ask me over the weekend, what is the district doing? I sent a note to my teacher or my kid's teacher, but what I'm only one person, what's the district doing to recognize? So I think it's really timely, and I think it will be appreciated by the whole community on behalf of the community to say thank you.
So do you need a motion to approve?
Yep.
I move to approve the employee support plan as presented.
I'll second.
We have a wizard on
Whoops, we don't have the lines, but that's okay.
Okay, that's right, okay. A motion from Director Blacklands, a second from Director Sjogren to approve the employee support plan as presented. Any further discussion? Thank you for all your work on this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys for all you do.
Yeah.
You're the ones that deserve the
Applause should be
credit.
for you all. Okay, next up we have the Sourcewell Robin Sportswood floor from ICS.
What's that? Fair enough. Yeah, understood.
Good evening,
So in
Scott.
your board packet, you'll see a proposal from H2I utilizing Sourcewell funding. We worked with, well, I shouldn't say we, the athletics department worked with the Clows very early on and identified a need for a enhanced dance floor in our multi-purpose room. I was thinking studio stage for some reason.
It's the old pool.
Yeah, multi-purpose room, the old pool building. As we're nearing close to construction on that, we had a couple options that we got from Sourcewell, from H2I, utilizing Sourcewell pricing. And with the generous donation from the Clows, we were able to come in $14,930 or $30 over what the donation is. So that would be to, I guess the action item would be to accept the Sourcewell proposal for the $84,930 for the Robbins Sportswood dance floor.
Right. And again, I just would like to say thank you to Steve and Cindy Clow with Just for Kicks for providing $70,000 of it to cover that. So it'll, out of the Blueprint 181, it'll be $14,930. So thank you very much to them for this generous donation.
Any questions regarding the sports floor proposal?
So Reed, hate to beat this dead horse, but in terms of flexibility with volleyball, that will be the,
It's actually going to be more conducive to multi-sport use because it really is a true suspended wood floor. It's going to be on sleepers, and it's got the same thickness as we have, what we would typically would see in like our main gymnasium floors. So installation of volleyball sleeves. We're talking about an indoor pole vault pit, so that come springtime in Minnesota, we know we don't get spring as early as we'd like to get it for our outdoor athletes that are our track athletes. So we're going to be able to do a lot of cool things in that space, use it to the best of our ability year round. Where right now as a pool, it kind of sits vacant after our swimming season is through. I mean, we have practices and stuff, but beyond that, beyond the season, it's not utilized to its fullest extent. So this multi-purpose room will have the ability to have sleeves in there. I think Scott's already got the pricing included for sleeves that match our Seno poles that we have in the main gymnasium, and we're putting in that pole vault pit, pole vault box as well. So.
oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a son who was a pole vaulter, and he is gonna be really jealous when he does.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, what we looked at was the old system we were talking, what was originally in the plan, it was a vinyl plank floor, and then we went to this modified floor through the request of the Clows, and obviously they committed funding towards getting us there. When Scott and I looked at it, I mean, we were right there with getting in a gym floor, a sports floor that is what they compete on. Why wouldn't we put that in that space? So that's the proposal in front of you.
And I don't know if everybody realizes the agility that floor will provide us and how efficient. Because right now, the school is actually busing students over to Riverside for volleyball. So the agility that we're discussing here will help us not have to do that and keep the students in-house.
More convenient for all of our student athletes, correct?
That's great.
Yep.
Thank you.
So do we have a motion?
I move to approve the proposal from H2I through Sourcewell for a Robin Sportswood floor for the Brainerd High School multipurpose gymnasium for a total of $84,930. And $70,000 has been committed for payment through the generous donation from Steve and Cindy Clow with Just for Kicks. The remaining balance is not to exceed $14,930.
Thank you, Director Blackland.
Well, I'll happily second that motion as the parent of a dancer.
Any further discussion?
I should probably abstain from voting.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion from Director Blacklands, a second from Director Sjogren. We have one abstention, and those in approval, say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. Motion carries with one abstention.
All right, then the next action item we have for you tonight, or the Brainerd High School North Campus, is the approval PR 50. So this was the redesign of the A-wing. Originally, our A-wing redesign was very minor for that wing of the building. Through this updated plan, it will be a pretty significant increase in both size of classrooms, circulation, logistics, dedicated science wings, and overall bringing it into the rest of the building aesthetically. So in front of you, or in your board books, we've got the amount not to exceed of $10,530, or $10,530,247.20. Of that dollar amount, $1,832,692 is soft costs. And that soft cost composes the program management fee at $1,019,000, our abatement dollars for the additional scope of work and the additional asbestos removal in those buildings, general conditions, which is going to fund our dumpsters, bathroom, permitting, things of that nature, contingency, and then reimbursables for the project at $150,000. Part of that, we will be accepting $667,000 of value engineering items to bring that cost down to the $10,430,247.20 that's shown.
So we had previously approved this project at about, that amount was about
That
the same.
amount, yep, so initially, 9,510,000, we knew we were rolling over, in which we approved, oh no, I lost that number, but it was 10,567,000.
So we're right in line with what we previously approved.
The last.
Correct, with the acceptance of the value engineering types,
Okay.
that's correct.
And we're still going to look and see how much of this can qualify with our CARES funds
Correct.
that we have. And actually, the word that we got at our meeting today is it looks like a great deal of this will qualify for our CARES funding. So it'll be up to the board on how much they want to use from CARES and how much from Blueprint 181. So, yeah, we were pretty excited about that
Very excited.
when we came to the meeting today.
Yeah, we're working on that right now, getting that submittal pulled together for that CARES funding.
You're getting your exercise tonight.
Any questions on PR 50?
Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Hagelin.
Second.
Thank you, Director Blacklands. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we have a first from Director Hagelin, a second from Director Blacklands. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
And I think they're going to take just a minute to kind of update the
Yes.
board on what happened on Friday with
the high school.
Absolutely. So, in case you haven't heard, on Friday, we had a makeup air unit over the fax labs. It was makeup air unit number 2. There was a cooling side coil which burst, likely during the cold snap we had, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Now that it thawed out, that glycol in the system, which is, it's a food safe glycol, so it's not like it's toxic or anything of that nature. It did leak out into our Fax 1, Fax 2 storage and our engineering lab. So there was a pretty sizable amount of ceiling tile that was damaged. As soon as we got noticed, RJ Mechanical, Thielen was there helping to clean up. Holden came in, as well as remove some lights and fire alarm devicing and things of that nature. So all the contractors, when notified, came through and started doing the right thing, cleaning it up and helping get things put back together. So now we're in fact finding and determining what the root cause of the issue is. Obviously, it was a ruptured cooling coil. It was on a unit with freeze-stat protection, so it's a little bit baffling why it broke. We have some hunches, but we're waiting to confirm the exact root cause of that. We are meeting there tomorrow with the contractors involved with that piece of equipment to do a damage assessment and figure out what all we want to get repaired, replaced, or removed. So.
Is there other units similar to that?
There are 3 makeup air units, one over the main kitchen, one over our fax lab, and then one over the wood shop room. The one over the main kitchen, there is no issue with that unit. That unit's been fully operational for 1.5 years. Makeup air unit number 2 and number 3 we're unsure as of the status of 3, so we did valve that off and drain the system on that makeup air unit just to prevent any future damage until we figure out exactly what's going on.
And this is under warranty, and so
Correct.
we expect that it's going to be all brand new when it's figured out, and so we're just going to put it to make sure you guys are overseeing it,
Yep.
and it'll be
Absolutely.
back to like new and normal.
It might take a little bit to get it back together, but it'll get there.
Thank you.
Contractors are on board.
So the classrooms are usable now?
There's a couple spaces that we're still working on equipment underneath. There's actually still a little bit of residual leakage and some wet insulation that we're taking care of, so those spaces are off limits, but the fax classrooms have been cleaned up, and by tomorrow we'll have them fully back in operation. Those classes have been working out other spaces for right now, but we'll have them back up and running tomorrow is my understanding, so.
Great.
Great.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Next up are Brainerd Learning Center construction documents.
Mark, there's your attachments right here, so you just click on those when you wanna, whatever you wanna.
Missed a word, right?
Right here. Is there the PowerPoint presentation? I think it'd be the easiest way to go through it quick. Here, let me see. Yep. I saw the downloads and it was in there. That's it? Maybe. I'll get it in a second.
Fitbit to counter steps.
I know, she's getting her exercise.
Where do you see it? There it is. There we go. All right, the Brainerd Learning Center construction documents, so we're presenting these here and asking for board action to approve the construction documents and to solicit pricing from Sourcewell for this project. So I'll go through a quick overview of the project and then go from there. So again, the Brainerd Learning Center construction documents presentation. Here's our cover page is an axon drawing of the building. And continuing into the floor plan, I'll kind of talk through a little bit of what the space includes.
Just a little bit so I can see.
There we go.
Yep.
And I'll kind of start at the top and work my way down. So in the northmost or at the top area, there is a computer room and some offices where we're doing some finishes updates, mainly carpeting to replace some old materials that have been in there for 20 some odd years. And then turning around the corner down here, we've got an updated workroom where we're updating some casework cabinetry to better support what the staff needs. And then that also ties into the safe and secure entrance, which is one of our top priorities for the building. And that includes reception area and then updated access to the building. As you continue out here towards the exterior of the building, we have the updated pylon that will kind of signify where the main entrance is.
You can see that in the little breakout right here.
Yep, there you go. So that'll help signify where the main entrance of the building is, and that's let us know that's where the main entry point is. And then the vestibules will be updated to allow people to walk into the vestibule and then ask for access into the building. Continuing through here, talking through the gym space. So the current gym or multi-purpose room has carpet installed, so we're gonna replace that with the rubber flooring that you see or that you've seen in all the other projects that we've done so far for multi-purpose spaces. A couple of basketball hoops to get rid of the ones that roll around on the floor. And then continuing through there into the food service and kitchen area. So the serving lines are being updated to improve the efficiency of that space to help cycle students through there faster. And then as they continue as we continue through to the bottom of the page here, after they get lunch or breakfast or whatever the meal is, there's a commons area here with the VCT flooring shown as a space for them to be able to eat and have enough room for everyone to be able to enjoy whatever, or, whatever food or whatever it is that they're doing at that time. So there's plenty of room for them to do that.
So all those lines aren't walls?
No, that's just like a flooring layout to kind of signify that we're not just doing one carpet all the way through or one vinyl floor all the way through. There's going to be some detail to it.
Yeah, that whole area though is open.
Yep.
Right,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Yep.
Mimic
That's what I
that
thought,
to
but it just doesn't look like that from the drawing.
yeah, mimic that to student commons at the high school.
Okay.
Open space.
Yep.
And finally, to this, to the bottom of the page here, we have the Family and Consumer Science Lab that's being installed here. So we have 2 spaces for general appliances and ovens and kitchens and that space setup, as well as some casework and countertops that go along with that, and teaching space kind of towards the west side of that wall there. So.
Is there a washer dryer there too?
There is, yes.
Okay.
That's that little
Oh, okay,
box right there.
perfect.
So that's the plan in a nutshell. I'm trying to zoom out here without ruining it. There we go.
So talk briefly about the schedule. We are planning for this to be a summer construction, so we've got time built in there for move out for staff, and then a construction duration, and then we're anticipating, or we're scheduling time for owner move-in, and then we have some district training for the staff that needs to get in there. One, get used to the space, get classrooms set up, and that's something that we've done a little bit different than in the past. We're identifying that time at the end. Knowing that we will certainly have everything wrapped up by that point, but there no doubt will be some odds and ends, but hopefully they're minimal at that point. The construction document estimate. There we go. So at this point right now, we're tracking right in line with what we budget or have been budgeting all along. Yeah. So we originally budgeted our original budgets came in at $779,000. That's over here. Sorry, I don't want to mess it up too much. There we go. And continued to trend the estimate throughout the pre-construction process, and at this point we're at 778. And what we have tracked in there are a few items, such as there's some technology items and other construction items in there that you would, or non-construction items that you wouldn't typically see in there. So we've made sure that we've allocated for some owner items in there as well. And that is the presentation overall. I know in the board book we've got the full set of drawings and specifications. The estimates included in there, and the project schedules in there as well.
Shows you how old I am. I couldn't remember where the frozen foods were. Only some of you got that.
I got it.
Still stuck on the 54 years old.
It's a good-looking project.
I think we're all stuck on that one.
You never live that one down.
Somewhat, I think, was qualified.
You need a motion.
Yes. Well, okay, do we have a motion to approve this design?
So move.
Thank you, Director Boyles.
I'll second.
Thank you, Director Blacklands. Any further discussion?
I'm gonna abstain from this.
Okay. Director Spears will abstain. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-1 with 1 abstention. Next, we'll go on to the all-state communications for our cameras and card access.
No, I think we've got Wesby.
Oh, I skipped one again, I'm sorry.
Trying to move us along tonight, Ruth.
Okay, let's do Wesby next.
You can go ahead and start.
There you go. So the Wesby schematic design presentation, here we're going to ask to move from the schematic design documents into design development. And we'll go through.
We just hit the present key up on the top right corner.
There we go, that's what I
Yeah,
was
there we
looking
go.
for.
So we'll talk briefly about the floor plan and some of the process that we've gone through to get to where we're at today. I think the last time we met on this, we had a challenge to incorporate the programming at the $13.5 million budget to account for some safe and secure items that were going to be a challenge to do. And through months and meetings and lots of planning, and we're finally starting to get we've got the program space locked in, and the schematic design is to a point where we're ready to start adding the detail and how we start building this thing out. So the floor plan in front of you here at the top of the page, the dark blue space, that's essentially the welcome center and how we accomplish our safe and secure entrance. We have some spaces identified there as far as how to place the reception desks and how we control the safe and secure entrance there. And then also director spaces within it as well to help support the school and students who are starting with the district and kind of consolidating a lot of that, which has been a lot of what the discussions revolved around about how different departments are within the building. So continuing into the green space to the right and to the left, those areas have been identified as early childhood spaces. And we've identified within those spaces where we can add bathrooms to support support what the code requires for the number of bathrooms, and also help alleviate some of the structural items that we were looking at originally. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but in this space here, we had originally kind of identified this space as being bathrooms, which would have required us to fill in the locker room below with a structural floor and then build bathrooms up from there. So based on the feedback from the user groups that we have so far, this layout is more conducive to what they need and also takes a huge pressure off the budget too. Other items to talk through here quickly and shown throughout the drawings that are included in the board book, but the light blue areas are the other bathrooms that we're updating for the ADA toilets. And meeting the goals there, and then safe and secure entrances have been identified on the south of the page as well to provide access for staff and students depending on where they need access to the building. So we have access accounted for here towards the top and then towards the rear as well.
I think just a kind of a big fundamental change here is that creation of a second safe and secure entrance on that south mark, and kind of talk about what we're going to do for parent drop-off.
And so to help accommodate some of that, there's ADA wheelchairs, and I'll get into the bus drop-off too. We're looking at wheelchair access or the wheelchair lift towards the south and how that is incorporated into the building. So we've got some plans put together for that. But essentially allowing us to get access to the building, because right now all we have are the stairs. So we need another way to access that. So we're accounting for that. And then as well, as far as where drop-off happens, right now it's along Oak Street into, sorry, I'm blanking the name of the road to the east here. But that would essentially be switched to the southwest corner of the building for pickup and drop-off, and then bus access as well. So that kind of takes it off of the Oak Street, which I know was a big push for us to get off of this busy corner and street.
So staff will park in the parking lot back behind the building, so the bottom, so it'd be the southeast entrance will be staff entrance, the southwest will be our early childhood children will be dropped off and picked up, bus drop off. And then on the front of the building, that's for new people that are coming in or people that are going through community education. Reed, do you want to point out where each of the departments are going to be, how the Welcome Center is going to be different with the new lobby and stuff too? I think that's such a cool part about this plan.
And Mark, feel free to jump into, but essentially what we've talked about right now in the center of the building, with our Welcome Center, we have transportation and our enrollment staff sitting right there together. And so because those are, kind of key critical folks to have around our Welcome Center, we're talking about the relocation of transportation over to this area. And then enrollment staff would be right here. And so what you typically see when you walk into, say, the high school or even our elementary schools, we've got that really nice welcoming front desk. We're going to mimic that same sort of setup here, where you could have one or potentially even two people sitting at that front desk working. And then transportation can come over. There's actually a little meeting space for them. If people need to go over and get signed up for busing, they can go across the hall. But enrollment would happen on that east side. And then we've got a community education side of this too. So as people are coming in, they're enrolling for school, they can also get enrolled in all of the other things that we offer through the community education department. And so there's staffing spaces here on the west side of the building for some of our community education staff to be located there. We're talking about who's exactly going to be where as we go through the design development, which is the next phase, but that's the blocked out space that we have for community education.
And
So.
then the lobby thing, I think that's such a cool part of this.
Yeah, really, we've got just kind of a multi-purpose use space here in the front. And so it could be used for, if there's any little community meetings, events in Tornstrom Auditorium. It could be used in the interim for touchdown space, conference space, whatever it might be. We've kind of got a space allocated in the middle of the Welcome Center there too. If we're having an enrollment drive, we can set up kiosks and information there. We can have all kinds of stuff going on. So it's kind of a flex multi-use space.
I like that.
So one of the things we tried to do is to keep the beautiful front of this building, because this really is the historic showcase piece of our school district. And I know, Tom, you had said, I really like the idea of keeping the Welcome Center on the front. And so we were able to do that. And I think what's just neat about it is we can do the functioning stuff in the back, get the children away from that crazy road out in front and stuff. But we still have places for people to park where they can come, register their children, register for Fun and Friends, those kinds of things, and still have access to that beautiful lobby and to the beautiful front of this building. So it's fun to be taking care of Washington. That's kind of the big stuff in the,
Yeah, there's a lot to tackle here. A lot of it you don't see at this point either. A lot of it's behind the walls, so. Talk quickly about the schematic design estimate. So our budget, when we had assessed that last time, made some adjustments to it based on the programming and how the kind of how the building was laying out. And then for the SD estimate that you see there towards the right, we're trending a little bit below where we thought we would be for where we thought we would be originally when we last met about this project. So right now I'm showing $12,996,590, and that is based largely on the reduction in structural steel that we saw. We had some plans early on where we were going to put some platforms in a couple different places, and that's removing those has helped quite a bit. Some items to note here, we are seeing some upticks in things like boilers and other equipment that we're looking at. So there's some areas are up and some areas are down, but I think holistically the structural steel piece is what's helped the most.
Great.
So still a lot of work to do. As you can see, we have a DD and CD estimate, and then finally bids, and then we'll, that's the path that we're following.
Any questions? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a first from Director Spear,
Well, second.
second from Director Boyles. Okay. Any further discussion? I'm excited for this project.
Me too.
Yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
And it's our last project.
Yeah.
The last one.
How many has there been? 12 total?
Shows her.
Amazing.
Amazing, yeah.
Okay, next up, we have the Allstate Communications.
Okay, I believe attached to your board packet were multiple proposals for card access, camera security, and server quotes. Were they attached? I'm getting.
No, they weren't, but.
The dollar amounts were.
Okay, all right, I'll have to just double check. I thought I sent those over, but I can, you want me to pull them up quick or? Okay, essentially, I'll give you a little bit better of a narrative summary here. So at South Campus, we're adding 64 cameras for video surveillance throughout that building. Like we've done in every other building, we're doing the exterior of the building, we're doing our safe and secure entrances, we're doing all the main hallways. And with it being our level 4 facility, there's a few other cameras located in the areas where we know that we typically may have incidents happen. So we have some video footage security there that we're going to be able to provide to building staff. So that's the card access proposal in front of you. It does line up with, and I apologize, I thought I had sent them over. It does line up with the same dollar amount for what was proposed at the high school and other buildings. It's the same threshold. The camera system, or the card access system, again, lines up with what we've done at the high school. It's securing all of the exterior entrances and then passages between different programs within the building. So we're keeping those different areas secured. So people can't just, if they get into a building, they're going to their specific area, they're not, and they don't have the credentials to pass to the other area, or restricting access through there. So that's the proposals for the Lincoln Education Center. There's a proposal from Allstate Communication for the Brainerd High School for the second wave of cameras. If you recall, when we did the first wave of cameras, it was $160,000 for that first wave of cameras. This one here is $132,000 for the second wave of cameras. So that that dollar amount is to finish off the high school. It's going to be for the pool. It's going to be for the CTE area, the auxiliary gym, and then also some of the commons areas south further, the multi-purpose rooms and those areas south that we've been building on just this last year. So it's that will finish off that that building. In conjunction with South Campus and North Campus, we have a proposal for 2 servers to record all this video footage from all of these buildings. These would be funded from the Safe Schools funds. So the proposal for $429,000 for 429,123 is going to be split between our referendum technology budget, where we have taken funds out of previously for card access and security and cameras. The rest of it will be funded from, again, the Safe Schools funds. If you recall, Marcy talked a little bit about that in her budget update, that those funds are the restricted funds. That's what we typically would use those funds for, is for card access and cameras.
Okay, so the total of $429,000 includes the Lincoln Education Center work, the work at BHS, and the servers to be installed in this building.
That's correct. It's card access for Lincoln Education Center, cameras for Lincoln Education Center, the second wave at the high school, and then 2 video servers.
Okay. And this all fits within our budget, it looks like. So.
It does fit within the building technology budget. That's why, actually, when I looked at the 2 servers, our referendum technology budget, as we kind of gave an update at Project Oversight, you know, we are tracking a little bit over on that budget. And so to alleviate that budget pressure, because we do have the Safe Schools funding source, which we get every year. We didn't spend any the last couple of years because we've been putting all of our cameras and card access systems into the referendum project. We do have fund balance to pay for those servers in the Safe Schools funds. And so that's where I split the request between those 2 funding sources.
Thanks. Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve the proposal as presented for the $429,123.
A second.
We have a first from Director Hagel and a second from Director Spear. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up, we have our informational portion of our school board meeting. We'll start with Jana Sjogren on the Brainerd Public School Foundation.
Yeah, so I stepped onto the Brainerd Public School Foundation as an ex officio member representing the board, and was able to attend my first meeting in December. It's a great group of people from the community who volunteer on that board, and it was fun to join them. We had a little bit of holiday fun too, so thanks to Jessica and Amber for that. I think the biggest takeaways that I would want this group to know and the community to know is that, of course, the big event is coming up on February 5th. And as far away as that sounds, it's really not. So I would encourage people, if you don't have your tickets already, to get them, because I mean, I think they're over 2/3 sold out already, if not more. And just to remind people, the event is at the Gather on 3 space, which is near the Woods restaurant. And the capacity is much smaller than the venue in the past. So it'd be really important to get your tickets soon, because I think they'll sell out very quickly. You can go to bigevent22.givesmart.com to get your tickets. And just a reminder that that event is what raises funds to help our foundation supplement the amazing opportunities for our students, like scholarships, 4A grants. They recently were able to extend funds for the Warrior Strength Room, and most recently to help procure the piano at the Gitchezebe. So I just thank our school's foundation for helping to enhance those opportunities for our students. And I invite our community to help us fundraise for those. And then lastly, Christmas is coming, and for those of you who still have your shopping to do, just remember you can go downtown to Visit Brainerd to get your Warrior gear. So great spot to go shopping and to promote our public schools. And that's all I have.
It's a really nice store.
It is, yeah.
it's
It's a
really
nice
fun.
way to go see things in person, because you can sometimes purchase things online, but it's nice to be able to go and touch and feel and see how it looks, yeah.
Thank you, Reverend. Next up, we have Marcy Lord with some enrollment and financial information.
Try not to bore you too much. You guys had to suffer through the tax hearing. The enrollment report is in your packet. We are down 37 K through 12. In the prior year, we were down 50, so it's tracking better. And I have a 3-year average of 48, so we are tracking better than the 3-year average as well. So hopefully we can continue that trend so that we're not down as much as we were at the end of the year last year. Any questions on the enrollment report? Okay. In your packet is also the June financial report. So as you know, we've been working on the audit, so we hold off on the June financial report until we have audited final numbers so that the numbers aren't changing. So in there is what is audited, and then we will have the actual audit presented at the January 10th meeting. And 2021, I just want to note on here, you'll see that several of the, pretty much general fund, community service, food service, a lot of them were under budget. So we kept the budget status quo from the prior year, and there was a lot of unknowns due to COVID, CARES funds. So that's why we were under budget so much compared to the prior year. Any questions on that? Okay. And then you have the financial report as of October. We are tracking higher in the food service and community service funds, because last year we had foods inventory in stock already. We're seeing increasing in pricing. Community service, we have increase in programming. There's just been a lot of changes compared to last year. So last year was kind of an anomaly, and we're starting to get back on track compared to previous years. All right. And then also in there is the ESSER, or the CARES report. So the first page is 21-22, the funding buckets that we've received so far: GEAR, ESSER 1, ESSER 2, the discretionary ARP funds, ESSER 3, and then the COVID testing. And you can see the items that we have plans for. ESSER 2 does have that projection of the longevity stipend that was discussed earlier in the plan. So at the end of this year, we'd have about $440,000 of that carried forward to the next year. The governor's discretionary ARP, that's for summer academics and mental health support. We'll have to start working with Jessica Habajoki to come up with a plan for those funds so we can get those spent, because those do expire at the end of this next summer. Minnesota COVID testing also expires at the end of this year. We're using it on testing and staffing, current staffing. We'll try to spend it as much as we can. I'm not really sure if we'll be able to do that. So the second page is what does all that carry forward to 22-23. So in the ESSER 2 column, you can see I have the carryover, and then basically anything that we currently have budgeted for staffing, the systems admin, COVID coordinator, Heidi and Angie technically, and secretary, site nurses, stipends, all of that is carried forward, and then we roll over any excess into ESSER 3, and that would leave us about $2.2 million that we're spending, and then 8.8 carrying forward to the next year. So we have till 2024 on those funds. And then the governor's funds would be gone. If you go to the next page, we look at 23, 24, and basically the only two buckets left is the homeless and youth, and then the ESSER 3. So when we talked about, the building projects, there's approximately 6.1 million right now that we do not have, a plan for. There may we may have things that arise. I mean, it seems like it's every week we have something new that we're finding out about or trying to figure out. But as of right now, that's about what we have left that we do not have any plans for in the CARES funds.
And when do those funds expire?
2024.
So 12/31/24?
9/30/24. Yep.
And if you remember when we talked about the WESB project and the A-wing, that much of those projects actually could qualify for some of those funds, so.
But the budget that they presented as they did the schematic today doesn't include any of these dollars, or does it?
Not at this
Right?
point.
Okay.
No, we have
That's
to
kind of
get,
what- yeah.
we have to get approval for some of them, and so it'll be up to how much we want to use of this.
But that's a decision we can make in a year and a half.
Correct, yep.
So, for example, in the governor's discretionary column, when that's zeroed out, but I don't see any expenditures, is that just because we haven't figured out the way to spend it yet?
Exactly.
But we still
don't-
could?
Yep, we don't have a plan as of right now, so we will get a plan and then I can put in the dollar amounts.
How tightly earmarked is that stuff?
It can only be used for summer school and mental health, so we are kind of restricted on that.
Well, we have lots of mental health needs, I think. right
Yes,
now.
we do.
So I should just, so that I'm clear on this, any funds that aren't used or invested for good programs just go back, right?
Yes, correct.
So it's not like we have to spend them. I mean, these are tax dollars that
Yep,
if there's not a good solid use for them.
yep,
They go back, right?
yep, they go back. Any other questions on the CARES? Okay. And then the last, I just wanted to give a quick update. If you guys have been reading in the MSBA e-clippings, the state had a $7.7 billion surplus. And I just wanted to report on that. They were projecting a $1.6 billion surplus back in February, so that is good. One of the articles I read, it was interesting because the state was forecasted to spend about they've spent 39 million less expected on the compensatory aid. So I know that last year we were really pushing hard to try to get our compensatory funds up. So hopefully maybe with this surplus, we could get some sort of extra funding for that loss, because they did spend less on that because of all the districts that had a decrease in their free and reduced populations. So, yeah.
Is that mainly because of USDA, or what drove that?
So since all the meals were free, people weren't filling out the free and reduced applications.
Right, so the population's reduced because the forms never came back in.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So the state spent less money than what they had projected for that area.
What was our final free and reduced number that we got to?
I think it was 36%, I want to say.
We're normally at about 40.
40,
Yep.
So that's an issue we have to deal with this year too.
Yes, you are correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Thanks, Marcy.
Okay, superintendent's report.
All right, my report is going to be mostly dates, because there's a lot of date changes right now. And so the first thing I want to remind everybody is, I just want to wish everyone very happy holidays. Today is our last board meeting of the 2021 year. And so next time we're together, it'll be 2022. And so just hard to believe that. I was telling, though, that I was using lip gloss that says kiss 2020 goodbye, and I want to change it to 21 because it was a hard year this year. So yeah, it was kind of funny that I was using that today. On January 3rd, though, I would like to remind everyone, due to the change then with the plan, that'll be a staff in service day, but there will be no students on Monday the 3rd. The students, however, will come back on January 4th on that Tuesday, and so we'll make sure that we get communication out on that change. January 10th, the following Monday, will be our organizational meeting, and for all our new board members, that'll be at 5:30. And then we'll follow with a regular meeting at 6 o'clock. And then the next day, I know that 3 of the board members and myself will be going down to MSBA Phase 1 and 2 training down in the cities, and the rest of the board will be coming for the MSBA Leadership Conference. And I just want to remind the community that there will be a quorum of the board in attendance. So they will be driving, having meals together, attending professional development. And so we need to make sure that we're making that announcement that a quorum of the board will be together in many of those times for some of the general sessions and so on. And then we talked about the January 17th in-service. The 21st will be the end of the first semester, and then we'll go into the second semester on the 24th. One thing I would like the board to know, though, is if you remember in the referendum, one of the 8 goals that we had talked about community engagement, building a strong career and technical education program, and developing the workforce of our future. And I'm really excited about our career and technical education department at the high school. On January 31st at 4 o'clock, they are going to be having an open house of the high school career and technical education wings, inviting much of the public and our businesses to see the career and technical wings in our school, and also hoping that people will sign up to be part of the advisory committees for the departments, so that we are living up to that promise that we had, that we were going to be working with our business partnerships and developing the workforce of the future to show our students that we have great jobs for them in their futures. And so I'm really excited about the work that the Career and Tech Ed staff are looking at doing. I know it was kind of interesting because one of the county commissioners was visiting with me the other day too, and they're really interested in that. And I said, oh, you have to come to this. And so they're sending out an invitation to the county commissioners as well. So I hope you can make it at 4 o'clock that day. And that's all I have in my report. Just want to wish everyone a very happy holidays and a good break.
Yes. Yeah. Merry Christmas, happy holidays.
Absolutely.
Happy New Year. Okay. Now we have a closed meeting. It'll be closed pursuant to Minnesota State Statute Section 13D.03 for labor negotiation strategy. We need a motion to go into closed meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Director Blacklatz.
Second.
Thank you, Director Spear. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Okay, we will, does anyone need a break before we move into? Okay, 5-minute break and we'll move into